You'll never believe it, but Ukraine's more corrupt than you thought. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, where we like to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters. There is a certain word associated with freedom: democracy. You got to preserve democracy, otherwise totalitarianism, communism. You just need democracy, which is kind of like by the people, for the people kind of thing. It's great. On Tucker Carlson's most recent episode on Twitter, that's episode 7. I highly recommend watching it. We're going to take a look at a few quick clips of it here. But Tucker sought to answer the question, why are we fighting a war with Russia? Now I know, like, technically we're not. Yeah, but technically we are. We're using Ukraine. We're funding the crap out of Ukraine. And the answer to why we're fighting the war, you'll see Tucker Carlson explain, is basically we got to preserve democracy. Preserve democracy for Ukraine, which preserves democracy for the US. And it's all a sham. Tucker, he's going to reveal something really interesting that is just the mark of totalitarianism. It's not democracy in Ukraine. And just also factor in other non-democracy factors about Ukraine, which really invalidates, hey, we got to help Ukraine save their democracy. Well, they don't have one, so you can't save it. So other factors along those lines. Zelensky, he's banned gay marriage, which just makes it hilarious when you got versions of the pride flag with the Ukraine colors in it. He's thrown political rivals in jail. He's shut down churches. And now he is doing something else that is an even bigger sign of totalitarianism, not a democracy. Yet we're risking World War III for unlegit reasons. The reason we're giving is to preserve democracy, but that's not happening because they don't have a democracy. Let's take a look at Tucker as he's beginning to answer, why are we fighting this war with Ukraine? Take a look.
What is it? Well, thankfully, we have an answer. The war against Russia, ladies and gentlemen, the war against Putin and for Ukraine is in fact a war for democracy. Watch and recall the motive.
The President has said many times we're focused on what we can do to support Ukraine's effort to fight for their democracy.
Democracy must prevail.
By the way,
people are fighting the fight for their democracy.
Do you see any liars yet saying, like, we're fighting this war for democracy? Like, cool, we just saw 2 liars. That I've never seen Nancy Pelosi or Jean-Pierre something rather. Never seen them say anything that looked obvious or it looked honest. It's just all lies. Anyway, off we go.
And doing so for ours as well.
Assisting and helping Ukraine win this fight for democracy and freedom.
And of course, Ukrainian President Zelensky understands that what's at stake in Ukraine is bigger than just his nation. It is literally a battle for freedom and democracy themselves.
And that brings me to another point. If you hear a little lawn equipment outside, it's just the nature of whenever you shoot videos, there's going to be leaf blowers or lawnmowers outside. So it's just a law of the universe.
They are showing the world what an existential fight for democracy looks like.
President Zelensky and the Ukrainians have changed the course of history for the better, and we unequivocally are with the Ukrainian people in their fight to remain a sovereign democracy.
But they're not!
Unequivocally with the Ukrainian people to remain a democracy. It's a bipartisan view. Democracy must prevail. You just heard noted democracy expert Nancy Pelosi say, the daughter of the mobbed-up mayor of Baltimore. As Pelosi puts it, the Ukrainian people are fighting the fight for their democracy and for ours as well. That's right, for ours as well. Without Ukrainian democracy, in other words, we can have no democracy here.
Which, by the way, is a good point. If you lived in a world where you just pretend Ukraine does have a democracy, like, how do you connect the dots? Like, oh, we have to risk World War III to save their democracy, to preserve our democracy? It doesn't make sense. Then also the point is, and you'll see the big reveal here in a moment, Ukraine absolutely doesn't have a democracy, and any resemblance of a democracy that they did have is now gone.
If the Ukrainians aren't free, neither are we. We must make sure they can vote in Kiev so we can continue to vote in Kansas City. It's really that simple.
Keep in mind, being able to vote, that is a huge pillar of a democracy.
And yet tonight, we regret to tell you that we have a problem.
Here it is, big reveal.
It looks like they're not going to be able to vote in Kiev anymore. And no, for once, it's not Putin's fault. Democracy in Ukraine seems to be suspended by the world's foremost democracy advocate himself, Field Marshal Zelensky. Watch this.
Чи будуть в Україні наступного року вибори? Це ж питання глобальне. І якщо ми переможемо, то будуть. Значить, не буде військового часу, не буде війни. А вибори повинні проходити у мирний час, коли немає війни, згідно законодавства.
According to the law, he's full of crap. So we'll have an election if there's no more war. But we're not going to have an election if there's still a war going. The war's not going to end. Ukraine is refusing to go to the table of negotiations for peace talks. U.S. is continuing to fund this war. There will be a war. So he knows damn well there will be no election because he's saying there's gonna be no election if there's still a war. And if there's no election, guess what? No democracy. Let's go on.
So when are you having an election? Well, he says if we win, we'll let people vote. Otherwise, no. You vote when we feel like it, because ultimately we're completely in charge and make all the rules. Your job is to obey or be punished. That's our version of self-government. Self means me. I'm the government. Now, that's not just any autocrat. That's our chief ally in the war for democracy. This is the guy who just announced he's likely to cancel next year's election.
We know we've been getting lied to about the Ukraine war. We can speculate why the Uniparty is wanting to fight this war, certainly fueling the military-industrial complex. Certainly looks like a big part of it. Potentially trying to exhaust Russia's military through casualties and their monetary expenditures to weaken Russia's position in the world. That might be another reason as well. And many have said, I've heard Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk about this. I've heard Trump talk about this. If they get elected presidency, they'll end this war on day one. How will they do that? Bring Putin and Zelensky. Or maybe it's just, I don't even think Zelensky needs to be a part of this. It's just bring Putin to the table and give him what he wants, which is simply what we promised him he would get, which is keep NATO out of neighboring countries. I think it was back during the Bush administration. The U.S. made a guarantee to Putin, we won't bring NATO into your neighboring countries here. Cool, and we violated that. All we have to do to end the war is to keep the commitment, keep the promise that we once made. Then the war ends, according to Trump and Kennedy. But some would say there's vested interest in certain ill-willed people to not ending the war. One reason could be because those same people also want to end democracy. Now let's take a quick look at another clip from this episode. It'll be quick. Tucker giving a little recap.
For democracy on behalf of a leader who just casually announced he's happy to end democracy, and our democracy supporting leaders have no problem with that. In fact, they're strongly for it.
So, as we know, we've been getting lied to about the Ukraine war, the reason for the Ukraine war. Now we see it's just transparent as something that's really transparent. That the reason that we're given, it can no longer hold any water. We're in this war to save democracy. They haven't had a democracy, and now it's more obvious than ever that they don't. When the leader of Ukraine, Zelensky, is saying, yeah, we're not going to have elections if there's still a war. Well, there still will be a war, so you're saying you're not going to have elections. Got it. Which means you don't have a democracy, which means we're not in this war to save democracy, which means we're in this war for other reasons. And those other reasons, they're getting closer to the light of day, the light of awareness and the common person, because you can only lie to people with unbelievable lies for so long, and the lies just got even less believable. With that said, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, thank you for taking a moment to shine the light of awareness on some facts and I think some great reporting by Mr. Tucker Carlson with regard to the Ukraine war, the war with Russia, the potential beginnings of World War III. It freaking matters. And I don't think we deserve to be lied to anymore. But the liars aren't going to stop lying. So what we do, what we deserve, is to seek the truth ourselves. And I think that's what you and I do our best to do. By the way, on the message of truth, if you like to wear your truth out loud, you can check out, there's some new designs, classic designs, or some incredible 4th of July collections on sale in my Freedom Shop. You can check them out at awakenwithjp.com. Thank you for watching this with me, my freedom-loving friend. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. But until then, do stay free, because they ain't free in Ukraine.